The Kethmoran fleet hung in space like wounded birds, their once proud warships now little more than burning hulks drifting through the void. Admiral Zixthara watched through the bridge viewport as another of her destroyers exploded in a brilliant flash of white light, consumed by the relentless assault of the Vorth Empire's war machines. "Status report," she commanded, her four arms gripping the command console as the flagship shuddered under enemy fire. "We've lost 60% of our fleet, Admiral," reported her tactical officer, his scaled face pale with fear. "The Vorth dreadnoughts are advancing on our position. At this rate, we'll be overrun within the hour." Zixthara's mandibles clicked in frustration. The Kethmoran Confederation had been fighting the Vorth Empire for 3 cycles now, and every battle ended the same way. The Vorth simply had better technology, stronger shields, and more powerful weapons. Their dark ships moved through space like harbingers of death, each one capable of destroying entire Kethmoran squadrons single-handedly. "Sir, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Council," announced the communications officer. "Put it through." The holographic image of Councillor Velthari appeared before her, the elderly Kethmoran's eyes filled with desperation. "Admiral, how long can you hold your position?" "Not long, Councillor. We're outgunned and outnumbered. If you have reinforcements, now would be the time to send them." Velthari's expression darkened. "I'm afraid there are no more reinforcements, Admiral. What you see before you is all that remains of our military forces. However," he paused, seeming to struggle with his words, "there may be another option." "What kind of option?" 3 solar cycles ago, our scouts made contact with a species calling themselves humans. They claim to be from a world called Earth, located in what they refer to as the Orion arm of the galaxy. Our diplomatic teams have been in negotiations with them." Zixthara felt her heart sink. "Counselor, with respect, we need military assistance, not diplomatic talks with some unknown species." "That's just it, Admiral. These humans, they've offered to help us. One of their military vessels is already en route to your coordinates." "One ship?" Zixthara couldn't hide the disbelief in her voice. "Counselor, the Vorth have sent an entire battle fleet. What could one ship possibly do against such odds?" "I don't know," Velthari admitted, "but the humans seemed confident. Their representative, a being called Admiral Chen, assured us that their vessel would be sufficient. The ship is called the USS Blackstar." Another explosion rocked the flagship as a Vorth plasma torpedo found its mark. Emergency lights flickered throughout the bridge, and the smell of burning circuits filled the air. "Counselor, I appreciate any help we can get, but one ship against the Vorth Armada is suicide. These humans don't understand what they're facing." "Perhaps," Velthari said quietly, "but at this point, what choice do we have? The USS Blackstar should arrive at your coordinates within the hour. Try to hold your position until then." The transmission ended, leaving Zixthara staring at the empty hologram projector. Around her, the bridge crew continued their desperate work, trying to keep the ship operational as Vorth fire pounded their shields. She turned back to the viewport and watched as 3 more Kethmoran cruisers were torn apart by enemy dreadnought fire. "Admiral," called her sensor operator, "I'm detecting multiple Vorth reinforcement fleets approaching our position. They'll be here within 2 hours." Zixthara closed her eyes. Even if this mysterious human ship arrived as promised, it would face not just the current Vorth battle fleet, but additional reinforcements as well. Whatever species these humans were, they were about to be introduced to the full might of the Vorth Empire in the most brutal way possible. Across the battlefield, aboard the Vorth command ship Death's Herald, Fleet Commander Grakthos observed the dying Kethmoran fleet with satisfaction. His massive frame dominated the bridge, standing nearly 3 meters tall with thick armored hide that had earned his species their reputation as the galaxy's most feared warriors. Pathetic, he growled, his voice like grinding stone. The Kethmaran grow weaker with each engagement. Signal the fleet to begin final assault procedures. Yes, Fleet Commander, replied his subordinate. Shall we offer them terms of surrender first? Grakthos laughed, a sound like boulders crashing together. Surrender. The only terms the Vorth offer are complete submission or total annihilation. The Kethmaran made their choice when they refused to join our empire. The Death's Herald was a monument to Vorth military engineering. Nearly 2 kilometers long, it bristled with plasma cannons, torpedo launchers, and shield generators powerful enough to withstand the firepower of entire enemy fleets. Around it, dozens of smaller Vorth warships moved in perfect formation, their dark hulls absorbing the light of distant stars. Fleet Commander, interrupted the sensor operator, I'm detecting a new contact approaching our position. Single vessel, unknown configuration. Origin? Grakthos demanded. Unknown, sir. The ship doesn't match any design in our database. Grakthos studied the tactical display. The unknown vessel was indeed approaching, but something about its trajectory seemed wrong. It wasn't moving like a typical warship preparing for battle. Instead, it seemed to be sauntering, as if it had all the time in the world. Size classification? Approximately 800 meters in length, sir. Significantly smaller than our dreadnoughts. Interesting. Grakthos turned to his communications officer. Open a channel to this unknown vessel. Let's see who dares to interrupt Vorth military operations. Meanwhile, aboard the USS Blackstar, Captain Sarah Mitchell reviewed the tactical situation on her command displays. The bridge was a study in controlled chaos, with dozens of crew members working at their stations with practiced efficiency. Unlike the organic curves and flowing lines of alien ship designs, the Blackstar's interior was all clean angles and purposeful construction. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Vorth Fleet, reported Lieutenant Commander Jackson at the communications station. Put it on screen. The main view screen flickered to life, showing the imposing form of Fleet Commander Grakthos. Even through the transmission, the Vorth leader's presence was intimidating. Unknown vessel, Grakthos began, his voice echoing through the Blackstar's bridge. You are interfering with official Vorth Imperial operations. Identify yourself immediately or be destroyed. Captain Mitchell stood from her command chair, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the alien's aggressive posture. Fleet Commander Grakthos, I presume. I'm Captain Sarah Mitchell of the USS Blackstar, representing the United Earth Space Force. We're here at the request of the Kethmaran Confederation. Earth? Grakthos seemed genuinely puzzled. I am unfamiliar with this world or your species. No matter. You will withdraw immediately or face the consequences. I'm afraid I can't do that, Fleet Commander. We have a commitment to our new allies. Grakthos laughed again, the sound even more menacing over the transmission. Captain Mitchell, you command a single small vessel against my entire battle fleet. Even if your ship possesses advanced technology, you cannot hope to prevail against such odds. I offer you one chance to withdraw with your lives. Mitchell's expression didn't change. Fleet Commander, I appreciate the warning, but we didn't come all this way just to turn around. However, I'll extend the same courtesy to you. Withdraw your forces from Kethmoran space, and we can all avoid unnecessary bloodshed. The silence that followed stretched for several seconds. When Grakthos finally spoke, his voice was filled with disbelief. You dare threaten the Vorth Empire? With one ship? It's not a threat, Fleet Commander. It's an offer, last chance. Grakthos terminated the transmission, his image disappearing from the Blackstar's view screen. Captain Mitchell turned to her tactical officer. Commander Hayes, what's our weapons status? All systems green, Captain. MAC guns are loaded and ready. Missile pods are armed. Point defense systems are online. And the special package? Hayes smiled grimly. The Nova-class warhead is ready for deployment, Captain. Just say the word. Back on the Kethmoran flagship, Admiral Zixathara watched in amazement as the single human ship took position between her battered fleet and the advancing Vorth armada. The vessel was unlike anything she had ever seen. Where most ships were built for either speed or firepower, the USS Blackstar seemed designed for both. Its angular hull was covered in what appeared to be weapon systems, sensor arrays, and shield projectors. "Admiral," reported her tactical officer, "I'm reading some unusual energy signatures from the human vessel. Their power output is significant." "How significant?" "Well, sir, if my readings are correct, that single ship is generating more power than our entire remaining fleet combined." Zixathara felt a flutter of hope. Perhaps these humans weren't as naive as she had thought. "Open a channel to the USS Blackstar." Captain Mitchell's image appeared on the Kethmoran bridge, her human features strange but somehow reassuring. "Admiral Zixathara," Mitchell said, "I recommend you pull your ships back to a safe distance. Things are about to get interesting." "Captain Mitchell, the Vorth have over 50 warships in that fleet, including multiple dreadnoughts. Are you certain your single vessel can handle such numbers?" Mitchell smiled, and there was something in that expression that reminded Zixathara of a predator about to strike. "Admiral, in human military doctrine we have a saying, it's not the size of the ship in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the ship. You're about to see what human engineering can accomplish when we put our minds to it." As if summoned by her words, the Vorth fleet began to advance. Fleet Commander Grakthos had decided to end this farce quickly and decisively. 53 Vorth warships moved forward in attack formation, their weapons charging for the opening salvo. Aboard the Blackstar, Captain Mitchell watched the enemy fleet approach on her tactical display. Each Vorth ship was represented by a red symbol, creating a constellation of threats that would have intimidated any conventional fleet commander. But the USS Blackstar was far from conventional. "All hands, this is the captain," Mitchell announced over the ship's intercom. "General quarters, this is not a drill. We are about to engage a hostile fleet in defense of our allies. Show them what humanity is capable of." Throughout the ship, crew members secured their stations and prepared for battle. In the engineering sections, massive fusion reactors hummed with barely contained power. In the weapon bays, automated systems loaded shells the size of small buildings into electromagnetic railguns. In the missile compartments, sophisticated AI systems ran final checks on warheads that could crack planets. "Captain," reported the navigation officer, "the Vorth fleet has reached optimal engagement range. Commander Hayes, you may fire when ready." "Aye, Captain. All weapons target the lead dreadnought. Fire." What happened next would become legend among the species of the galaxy. The USS Blackstar's main armament consisted of 3 massive magnetic accelerator cannons, each capable of launching a tungsten penetrator at a significant percentage of light speed. When all 3 fired simultaneously, they created a stream of projectiles that crossed the distance between the human ship and the Vorth fleet in seconds. The lead Vorth dreadnought, a massive vessel called Destroyer of Worlds, never had a chance to react. The first tungsten rod punched through its shields as if they were tissue paper, tore through 2 kilometers of armored hull, and exited the other side in an explosion of vented atmosphere and debris. The second and third rounds followed milliseconds later, turning the mighty dreadnought into an expanding cloud of wreckage and superheated gas. Aboard the Kethmoran flagship, every crew member stood in stunned silence. In a single volley, the human ship had destroyed a vessel that would have required their entire original fleet to even threaten. "By the ancestors," whispered the tactical officer. "How is such firepower possible?" Admiral Zixthara could only stare at the expanding debris field that had once been the Vorth Empire's most powerful warship. "I think," she said quietly, "we may have underestimated our new allies." The battle for the Kethmoran system had only just begun, but already it was clear that the arrival of the USS Blackstar had changed everything. The Vorth Empire was about to learn that humanity's reputation for warfare was not exaggerated, and the galaxy would never be the same. The destruction of the Destroyer of Worlds sent shockwaves through the Vorth fleet that went far beyond the physical explosion. For the first time in over a century of conquest, a Vorth dreadnought had been completely annihilated in a single attack. Fleet Commander Grakthos stared at the debris field on his tactical display, his mind struggling to process what he had just witnessed. "Fleet Commander," stammered his tactical officer, "the Destroyer of Worlds has been eliminated." "I can see that," Grakthos growled. "What I want to know is how. Run a full spectrum analysis of that attack. I want to know exactly what kind of weapons we're dealing with." While the Vorth fleet hesitated, trying to understand what had happened, Captain Mitchell was already planning her next move. The element of surprise would only last so long, and she intended to make the most of it. "Commander Hayes, status report on the enemy fleet." 52 ships remaining, Captain. They've stopped their advance and appear to be regrouping. I'm detecting increased communications traffic between their vessels." "They're trying to figure out what hit them," Mitchell observed. "Let's not give them too much time to think. Prepare Missile Salvo Alpha. Target their cruiser formation on the left flank." "Aye, Captain. Missile Salvo Alpha ready for launch." The USS Blackstar's missile pods opened like deadly flowers, revealing rows of sophisticated projectiles. These weren't the simple explosive warheads used by most galactic civilizations. Each missile contained advanced AI guidance systems, adaptive targeting protocols, and warheads designed specifically to penetrate alien shield technology. "Launch missiles!" 24 missiles streaked away from the Blackstar, their drives burning brilliant blue as they accelerated toward their targets. The Vorth point defense systems immediately engaged, filling space with defensive fire. Plasma bolts and energy beams lanced out to intercept the incoming weapons. But human military technology had evolved through centuries of warfare against equally advanced opponents. The missiles began evasive maneuvers that seemed almost impossible, twisting and turning through the defensive fire with an agility that defied conventional physics. Their AI cores processed thousands of calculations per second, predicting the enemy's defensive patterns and adjusting their approach accordingly. The first missile reached its target, a Vorth heavy cruiser called Iron Fist. The weapon's penetrator warhead punched through the ship's shields and armor before detonating inside the vessel's reactor core. The resulting explosion tore the cruiser apart from within, sending debris cascading into nearby ships. One by one, the remaining missiles found their marks. In less than 30 seconds, 8 Vorth cruisers had been reduced to burning wreckage. The surviving Vorth ships finally began to react, returning fire with everything they had. Plasma cannons, particle beams, and torpedo launchers unleashed a barrage that would have vaporized any other single ship in the galaxy. The space around the USS Blackstar became a storm of deadly energy as hundreds of weapons fired simultaneously. But the Blackstar didn't simply endure the assault, it danced through it. The ship's maneuvering thrusters fired in complex patterns, allowing the massive vessel to move with an agility that seemed impossible for something its size. Point defense systems engaged incoming threats with surgical precision, destroying torpedoes and deflecting energy beams. When weapons did manage to strike the Blackstar's shields, the energy barriers absorbed the attacks and channeled the power back into the ship's systems. It was a technology the Vorth had never encountered before, shields that grew stronger under fire rather than weaker. Aboard the Kethmoran flagship, Admiral Zixthara watched in absolute amazement as the human ship single-handedly engaged the entire Vorth fleet. Her sensors were tracking the battle, but the readings seemed impossible to believe. Tactical, are you certain these readings are accurate? I've run diagnostics 3 times, Admiral. The human ship is not only surviving the concentrated fire of the Vorth fleet, its shields are actually increasing in power. How is that possible? I don't know, sir. Our scientists will need months just to understand what we're seeing. Meanwhile, the battle continued to rage. Captain Mitchell studied the tactical display, noting the Vorth fleet's movements and planning her next strike. The enemy was beginning to adapt, spreading their ships to minimize the effectiveness of her missile attacks. Commander Hayes, prepare the MAC guns for sequential fire. I want to punch through their formation. Captain, if we fire the MAC guns in sequence, we'll be creating a significant power drain. Our shields will be vulnerable for approximately 15 seconds. Understood. But if we can take out their remaining heavy units, the risk will be worth it. Proceed with the attack. The USS Blackstar's 3 magnetic accelerator cannons fired in sequence, each shot timed precisely to maximize damage. The first round struck a Vorth battlecruiser amidships, the tungsten penetrator passing completely through the vessel and into the ship behind it. The second round caught a dreadnought as it tried to maneuver, the impact sending the massive ship spinning out of control. The third round found its mark on the Vorth fleet's ammunition ship, creating an explosion so massive it could be seen from the edge of the star system. But the sequential firing had indeed left the Blackstar vulnerable. Fleet Commander Grakthos, still aboard the Death's Herald, saw the opportunity and seized it. All ships, concentrate fire on that human vessel now. Target their shield generators. The concentrated fire of 37 Vorth ships focused on the USS Blackstar like a hammer blow. For a moment, even the advanced human shields wavered under the assault. Emergency alarms sounded throughout the ship as power fluctuated and several systems went offline. Shield generators at 60% and falling, reported the engineering officer. We can't sustain this level of fire much longer. Captain Mitchell remained calm, her hands steady on her command console. Hayes, prepare the Nova warhead for deployment. Captain, are you sure? In a fleet engagement, the collateral damage could be... I'm aware of the risks, Commander, but we need to end this quickly before our shields fail completely. Set the yield to minimum and target the center of their formation. The Nova-class warhead was humanity's most powerful conventional weapon, a fusion device capable of generating a miniature star for several seconds. It was designed for use against heavily fortified targets or massive enemy formations, and its deployment in this battle would mark the first time humans had used such a weapon against alien forces. Warhead armed and ready, Captain. Firing solution locked. Fire! A single missile launched from the Blackstar, different from the others in its larger size and the ominous red glow emanating from its warhead section. The Vorth defensive systems immediately focused on this new threat, recognizing its importance even if they didn't understand its true nature. But the Nova missile had been designed to penetrate the most advanced defensive systems imaginable. Its armor could withstand direct hits from capital ship weapons, and its guidance system was linked directly to the Blackstar's tactical computers. Point defense fire hammered the missile as it approached the Vorth formation, but the weapon continued its deadly approach undeterred. Fleet Commander Grakthos watched the missile approach with growing alarm. Something about this weapon was different, and his instincts told him that the human ship had just escalated the conflict to an entirely new level. All ships, emergency evasive maneuvers, maximum burn, all vessels. But it was too late. The Nova warhead reached the center of the Vorth formation and detonated. For a brief moment, a new star was born in the Keth-Moran system. The fusion reaction created temperatures and pressures that existed nowhere else except in the cores of suns. The light was so intense that every ship in the system automatically activated their view screen filters to protect their crews from blindness. When the glare finally faded, 17 Vorth warships had simply ceased to exist. They hadn't been destroyed in any conventional sense. They had been completely vaporized by the miniature star. Another dozen ships had suffered severe damage from the electromagnetic pulse and radiation burst. Their electronics fried and their hulls partially melted. The remaining Vorth ships drifted in stunned silence, their crews struggling to comprehend what they had just witnessed. In the span of minutes, their mighty fleet had been reduced from 53 ships to fewer than 20 effective units. Aboard the Death's Herald, Fleet Commander Grakthos stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The readings showed empty space where half his fleet had been stationed just moments before. His massive frame shook with rage and something he had never experienced before: fear. "Fleet Commander," whispered his communications officer, "we're receiving surrender requests from 12 of our remaining ships." "Surrender?" Grakthos roared. "Vorth warriors do not surrender. Sir, the crews are terrified. They've never seen weapons like this before. Some of the captains are saying the humans possess the power to create suns." Grakthos looked at the tactical display again. The human ship was still there, apparently undamaged and ready to continue the fight. Around it, the space was filled with the wreckage of Vorth vessels, ships that had been the pride of the Empire just hours before. "Open a channel to the human vessel," he ordered quietly. Captain Mitchell's image appeared on the Vorth bridge, her expression neutral but alert. Behind her, the USS Blackstar's bridge continued its normal operations, showing no signs of the desperate battle they had just fought. "Fleet Commander," Mitchell said simply, acknowledging his presence. "Captain Mitchell," Grakthos began, his voice unusually subdued, "I underestimated your species and your technology. The Vorth Empire has not encountered weapons of this magnitude before. I tried to warn you, Fleet Commander. We didn't come here looking for a fight, but we're prepared for one if necessary." Grakthos was silent for a long moment, considering his options. The logical part of his mind told him that continuing this battle would only result in the complete destruction of his remaining forces. But the proud warrior culture of the Vorth made retreat almost unthinkable. "What are your terms?" he finally asked. "Complete withdrawal from Keth Moran space," Mitchell replied without hesitation. "Your forces will not return without explicit permission from the Confederation government. In exchange, we'll allow your surviving ships to depart unharmed." "And if I refuse?" Mitchell's expression hardened slightly. "Then we'll continue this battle until there are no Vorth ships left in this system. The choice is yours, Fleet Commander." While Grakthos considered his options, Admiral Zix Thara was trying to process everything she had witnessed. The human ship had just single-handedly defeated one of the most powerful fleets in the galaxy, using weapons and tactics that seemed almost impossible to believe. "Admiral," reported her science officer, "I've been analyzing the human weapon signatures. The energy readings are unlike anything in our database." "What are your conclusions?" "Sir, based on the power output and the effects we observed, I believe the humans have weaponized nuclear fusion itself. That final weapon appeared to create a controlled stellar reaction." Zix Thara felt her hearts racing. A species that could create artificial suns as weapons was beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. The implications for galactic politics were staggering. "Open a channel to the human ship," she ordered. Captain Mitchell's image appeared, now showing signs of the strain from the recent battle. "Admiral Zix Thara, I trust you and your crews are unharmed." "Yes, Captain, thanks to your intervention. I must ask, what you just demonstrated, is this typical of human military capability?" Mitchell seemed to consider her answer carefully. "The USS Blackstar is one of our newer vessels, Admiral. We have others like it." The simple statement sent chills through every Keth Moran on the bridge. If the humans had more ships like this one, they represented a military force unlike anything the galaxy had ever known. "Captain," Zix Thara continued, On behalf of the Keth-Moran Confederation, I want to express our deepest gratitude. You've not only saved our fleet, but quite possibly our entire civilization. We're honored to help, Admiral. The United Earth Space Force believes in protecting those who cannot protect themselves. As the two commanders spoke, Fleet Commander Grakthos made his decision. The survival of his remaining crews outweighed his personal pride and the traditions of the Vorth Empire. Captain Mitchell, he announced over the communication channel, the Vorth fleet will withdraw from Keth-Moran space immediately. We will not return without permission. A wise decision, Fleet Commander. Safe travels. The remaining Vorth ships began to move away from the battlefield, their formations ragged and demoralized. As they prepared to jump to hyperspace, every crew member aboard those vessels knew they had just witnessed the emergence of a new military power in the galaxy. But the battle of the Keth-Moran system was far from over. As the Vorth fleet limped away, long-range sensors detected the arrival of additional ships at the edge of the system. The Vorth reinforcements that had been summoned hours earlier were finally arriving, unaware that the original battle fleet had already been defeated. Captain Mitchell studied the new contacts on her display. 3 more Vorth fleets were approaching, each one larger than the force they had just defeated. It seemed the USS Blackstar's work in the Keth-Moran system was far from finished. The silence that followed the Vorth fleet's withdrawal lasted only minutes before new alarm signals echoed across both the USS Blackstar and the surviving Keth-Moran vessels. Long-range sensors painted a grim picture on every tactical display in the system. "Captain," reported Lieutenant Commander Hayes, his voice tight with concern, "we have multiple hyperspace signatures incoming. 3 separate fleets, each one larger than what we just faced." Captain Mitchell studied the sensor data with the same calm expression she had maintained throughout the previous battle. The numbers were staggering. Over 200 Vorth warships were approaching the Keth-Moran system, including what appeared to be several super dreadnoughts that dwarfed anything they had previously encountered. "Time to arrival? Approximately 40 minutes for the lead fleet, Captain. The other 2 will arrive within the following hour." On the Keth-Moran flagship, Admiral Zixathera watched the same readings with growing horror. Her crew had just witnessed the impossible, a single human ship defeating an entire Vorth battle fleet. But even the incredible USS Blackstar couldn't possibly face odds like these. "Captain Mitchell," she transmitted, "we're reading massive Vorth reinforcements incoming. Our long-range sensors indicate at least 6 super dreadnoughts among the approaching forces. I recommend immediate withdrawal while escape routes are still open." Mitchell's response surprised everyone who heard it. "Admiral, with respect, we didn't come this far to run from a fight. Besides, the USS Blackstar has a few more tricks to show." "Captain," Zixathera pressed, "these aren't ordinary Vorth vessels. Those super dreadnoughts are mobile fortresses, each one capable of destroying entire planets. No single ship can face such odds." "Perhaps not," Mitchell replied with a slight smile. "But who said we'd be fighting alone?" Before anyone could ask what she meant, the space around the USS Blackstar began to shimmer. The distortion grew stronger, and suddenly 3 more human vessels materialized out of stealth mode. Each ship was different in design, but clearly built by the same technological base, sleek, angular vessels bristling with weapon systems that radiated barely contained power. "Allow me to introduce the rest of Task Force 7, Captain Mitchell announced. The USS Thunderbolt, USS Storm Rider, and USS Apocalypse. We thought it best to keep some assets in reserve until we understood the full scope of the threat." Admiral Zixathera's mandibles clicked in amazement. "Captain, how long have those ships been there?" "Since about 10 minutes after we arrived, Admiral. Human military doctrine emphasizes the importance of tactical reserves and contingency planning." The 4 human warships moved into formation with a precision that spoke of countless hours of training and coordination. Each vessel was smaller than a Vorth dreadnought, but the combined firepower they represented was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen assembled in one place. Aboard the USS Apocalypse, Captain James Rodriguez reviewed the tactical situation with his senior staff. The newest ship in the task force, the Apocalypse was specifically designed for fleet engagements against numerically superior forces. "Status report on the incoming Vorth fleets," he requested. "Sir, we're looking at approximately 230 vessels total," reported his tactical officer. "The lead fleet includes 3 super dreadnoughts, each measuring over 4 kilometers in length. Our intelligence databases classify them as Planet Killer class vessels." "Excellent," Rodriguez said with grim satisfaction. "It's been too long since we had a real challenge. Commander Williams, prepare the Helios Array for combat deployment." "Aye, sir. Helios Array coming online." The Helios Array was humanity's latest development in space-based weaponry, a network of orbital mirrors capable of focusing and redirecting stellar energy into devastating beam weapons. The USS Apocalypse carried a miniaturized version that could create localized solar flares on demand. Meanwhile, aboard the USS Thunderbolt, Captain Lisa Chen was preparing her own ship's specialized systems. The Thunderbolt was built for speed and surgical strikes, carrying the most advanced stealth technology and electronic warfare systems in human space. "Navigation, plot, intercept courses for the incoming fleets. I want to be in position to start jamming their communications before they fully realize what they're facing." "Intercept courses plotted, Captain. We can be in position in 23 minutes." The USS Storm Rider, commanded by Captain David Park, was preparing for its own unique role in the coming battle. This vessel specialized in area denial and defensive operations, carrying swarms of automated defense drones and shield projection systems. "Deploy the drone cloud," Park ordered. "I want a full defensive perimeter around our formation and the Catamaran fleet." "Aye, sir. Deploying 2,000 combat drones." The space around the human task force suddenly filled with thousands of small, agile craft. Each drone was no larger than a fighter, but carried weapons and shields proportional to its size. Working together, they created a defensive network that could intercept incoming missiles and provide additional firepower when needed. As the human ships prepared for battle, the first Vorth reinforcement fleet finally arrived in the system. Fleet Admiral Krex Thul, commander of the Vorth Imperial Navy's Second Armada, surveyed the battlefield from the bridge of his super dreadnought Galaxy Crusher. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded, staring at the debris field that had once been a complete Vorth battle fleet. "Where is Fleet Commander Grakthos?" "Sir," reported his intelligence officer, "we received a transmission from the Death's Herald just before we arrived. Fleet Commander Grakthos reported that his fleet was defeated by unknown forces and was withdrawing from the system." "Defeated? By whom?" "The Catamaran don't have the capability to destroy an entire fleet." "According to the transmission, sir, it was a single enemy vessel. Species designation: human." Krexthul laughed, the sound echoing through the massive bridge. "One ship? Grakthos must have suffered some kind of system malfunction. No single vessel could defeat a Vorth battle fleet." "Sir," interrupted the sensor operator, "I'm detecting 4 vessels of unknown configuration near the Kethmoran fleet. They don't match any designs in our database." "Display them on the main screen." The image that appeared showed the 4 human warships in their defensive formation. To Vorth eyes, accustomed to the massive, heavily armored vessels of their own fleet, the human ships looked almost delicate. Their sleek lines and compact designs seemed inadequate for serious military operations. "Those are the ships that supposedly defeated an entire Vorth fleet?" Krexthul shook his massive head. "Impossible. Open communications with the lead vessel." Captain Mitchell's image appeared on the Vorth bridge, her calm demeanor unchanged despite facing odds of 50-1. "Fleet Admiral Krexthul," she said, somehow knowing his name and rank. Welcome to the Keth-Moran system. I'm Captain Sarah Mitchell of the United Earth Space Force. Captain Mitchell, Krexthul replied, his voice filled with disdain. You are trespassing in space claimed by the Vorth Empire. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. I'm afraid we've had this conversation before with one of your colleagues, Admiral. The answer remains the same. We're here at the invitation of the Keth-Moran Confederation, and we intend to honor our commitments. Do you truly believe 4 small ships can stand against the might of 3 Vorth armadas? Mitchell's expression didn't change, but there was something in her eyes that made even the massive Vorth admiral slightly uncomfortable. Admiral, your predecessor asked similar questions. I recommend you review the tactical recordings from that engagement before making any irreversible decisions. I have reviewed those recordings, Krexthul lied. Whatever tricks you used against Fleet Commander Grakthos will not work against a prepared fleet. Perhaps not, Mitchell acknowledged, but we've brought a few new tricks for this engagement. While the 2 commanders spoke, the remaining Vorth fleets were arriving in the system. The space around the Keth-Moran worlds filled with hundreds of dark warships, each one bristling with weapons designed to reduce entire worlds to ashes. The combined firepower was enough to sterilize every planet in the system several times over. Admiral Zixathara watched the build-up with growing dread. Even with 4 human ships, the odds seemed impossible. She had seen what one human vessel could accomplish, but this was beyond anything she could imagine surviving. Admiral, reported her tactical officer, the human ships are moving into new positions. They're spreading out? Indeed, the 4 human vessels were separating, each one taking position at a different point around the system. To conventional military thinking, it seemed like tactical suicide, dividing their forces in the face of overwhelming enemy numbers. But human military doctrine had evolved through centuries of warfare against desperate odds. The strategy they were implementing had been tested in the brutal conflicts of humanity's past, refined through countless battles against enemies who had seemed unbeatable. All human vessels, this is Captain Mitchell. Execute Operation Prometheus on my mark. Aboard the USS Thunderbolt, Captain Chen's ship vanished from all sensors as its stealth systems activated at full power. The vessel became a ghost, invisible to Vorth detection systems and capable of striking from unexpected angles. The USS Stormrider released its full complement of combat drones, creating a swarm of 10,000 automated fighters that spread throughout the system like a mechanical plague. Each drone was programmed with advanced AI that allowed it to operate independently while coordinating with the others. The USS Apocalypse powered up its Helios array, drawing energy directly from the system's star and preparing to redirect it as a weapon. The process created gravitational distortions that the Vorth sensors couldn't interpret, adding to their confusion about human capabilities. And the USS Blackstar began charging its most powerful weapon, a device that humanity had hoped never to use in actual combat. Admiral Krexthul, Captain Mitchell transmitted, this is your final warning. Withdraw your forces now, or face the full military might of the United Earth Space Force. The Vorth Admiral's response was predictable. All fleets advance and destroy those human vessels. Show them what happens to those who defy the Empire. 230 Vorth warships began their attack run, moving in perfect formation toward the 4 human vessels. It was the largest military force the Vorth Empire had ever assembled for a single engagement, enough firepower to conquer entire star systems. But as they advanced, strange things began to happen. The first indication that this battle would be different came when the USS Thunderbolt struck. Despite being invisible to Vorth sensors, the ship had been maneuvering into position behind their fleet. When it finally attacked, a full spread of human torpedoes materialized seemingly from empty space, striking 3 super dreadnoughts simultaneously. The weapons that hit the Vorth flagships weren't conventional explosives. They were antimatter warheads, devices that converted matter directly into energy with perfect efficiency. When they detonated, They created explosions that made the Nova warhead from the previous battle seem like a firecracker in comparison. The first super dreadnought, the Galaxy Crusher, simply ceased to exist. 4 kilometers of armored death became an expanding ball of pure energy that vaporized everything within a 10-kilometer radius. The other 2 flagships suffered massive damage, their hulls cracked open and their systems failing as they drifted helplessly through space. But the antimatter strikes were just the beginning. The USS Storm Rider's drone swarms had positioned themselves throughout the Vorth formation, and when they attacked, they did so with perfect coordination. 10,000 small craft struck simultaneously, their combined firepower overwhelming point defense systems and turning dozens of Vorth vessels into burning wrecks. The USS Apocalypse activated its Helios array, redirecting the power of the system's star into a focused beam of solar fire. The weapon cut through space like the finger of an angry god, slicing clean through everything in its path. Entire formations of Vorth ships were reduced to glowing plasma as the stellar beams swept across the battlefield. And then the USS Blackstar revealed its ultimate weapon. "Temporal displacement cannon charged and ready," reported Commander Hayes, his voice betraying the awe he felt at the weapon they were about to deploy. "Fire," Captain Mitchell ordered simply. The weapon that fired from the USS Blackstar was unlike anything that had ever been used in galactic warfare. It was a device that manipulated time itself, creating localized temporal distortions that could age targets by millions of years in seconds. The beam struck the center of the largest Vorth formation, and the effect was immediate and terrifying. Ships that had been built to last for millennia suddenly experienced the passage of eons. Metal corroded, systems failed, and entire vessels crumbled into dust as they aged beyond their structural limits. 50 Vorth warships were reduced to cosmic debris in the span of heartbeats, their crews never even understanding what had destroyed them. Fleet Admiral Krex Thule watched in horror as his mighty armada was systematically dismantled by weapons that seemed to violate the fundamental laws of physics. Antimatter, stellar manipulation, temporal distortion. These humans wielded forces that the Vorth had only theorized about. "All ships," he transmitted, his voice breaking with panic. "Retreat! Full retreat! Emergency jump to hyperspace!" But the USS Thunderbolt had been busy during the battle, using its electronic warfare systems to jam Vorth communications and navigation. Many ships couldn't receive the retreat order, while others found their hyperspace systems disabled. In less than an hour, the largest military force in Vorth history had been reduced to scattered remnants fleeing in all directions. Of the 230 ships that had entered the system, fewer than 30 escaped to tell the tale of their defeat. As the last Vorth vessels vanished into hyperspace, the USS Blackstar stood alone among the debris field that stretched for millions of kilometers in all directions. The space around the Kethmaran worlds was filled with the wreckage of what had once been the Empire's greatest fleet. Admiral Zixathara's voice broke the silence that followed. "Captain Mitchell, what we just witnessed. How is such power possible?" Captain Mitchell turned to face the Kethmaran admiral, her expression serious but not unkind. "Admiral, humanity has been at war for most of our existence. We've fought against our own environment, against each other, and against the universe itself. When we finally reached the stars, we brought with us every hard-won lesson from 10,000 years of conflict. But weapons that control time itself, that harness the power of stars? How did one species develop such technology? Necessity, Admiral. When survival is at stake, intelligent beings can accomplish remarkable things. Humanity learned long ago that sometimes overwhelming force is the only path to lasting peace." Over the following days, news of the Battle of Kethmoran spread throughout the galaxy like wildfire. The Vorth Empire, which had seemed unstoppable just weeks before, was suddenly on the defensive as their neighbors realized that a new military power had emerged. The surviving Vorth forces retreated to their core worlds, abandoning dozens of conquered systems as they tried to consolidate their defenses. For the first time in their history, the Empire faced an enemy they couldn't defeat through brute force alone. Other galactic civilizations watched these developments with a mixture of hope and fear. The humans had demonstrated their willingness to protect the weak, but the sheer power they had displayed was enough to make even their allies nervous. Captain Mitchell understood these concerns, which is why she agreed to a meeting of the Galactic Council just 1 week after the battle. Representatives from dozens of species gathered to meet with the humans for the first time, their curiosity mixed with wariness. "Honored delegates," Captain Mitchell addressed the assembly, "I understand that recent events have raised questions about human intentions and capabilities. I'm here to assure you that Earth seeks only peaceful coexistence with our galactic neighbors." "Captain," interjected Delegate Morthak of the Hegemony, "your ships just demonstrated the ability to destroy entire fleets with weapons we don't understand. How can we be certain that humanity won't use this power against us?" Mitchell's answer was simple and direct. "Because we've already had that power for longer than you know, and we've never used it against innocent beings. The USS Blackstar and her sister ships have been operating in this galaxy for over a year, helping where we could and learning about our new neighbors. We only revealed our full capabilities when faced with an enemy that threatened to destroy an entire civilization." The revelation that humans had been present in galactic space for so long without being detected sent another shockwave through the assembly. If they could remain hidden for a year, what else might they be capable of? "What do you want from us?" asked Ambassador Telvari of the collective. "Friendship," Mitchell replied without hesitation. "Trade, cultural exchange, mutual defense agreements with those who want them. Humanity has spent too long fighting alone. We'd prefer to build something better together." The discussions that followed would reshape galactic politics for generations to come. Some species welcomed the humans with open arms, eager to benefit from their protection and technology. Others remained suspicious, forming defensive alliances against what they saw as a potential threat. But one thing was certain: the age of Vorth dominance was over. The USS Blackstar had changed the balance of power with a single battle, proving that even the mightiest empire could fall to those who refused to surrender. In the years that followed, the Battle of Kethmaran would be remembered as the moment humanity announced itself to the galaxy, not through diplomacy or trade, but through the universal language of warfare, a language that humanity had mastered through necessity and wielded with devastating effectiveness when peace was not an option. The Vorth Empire still existed, but it had learned to respect boundaries it had never acknowledged before. The Kethmaran Confederation became one of humanity's closest allies, their gratitude ensuring a lasting friendship between their peoples. And somewhere in the depths of space, the USS Blackstar continued its patrol, a silent guardian watching over those who could not protect themselves. For humanity had learned long ago that peace was not simply the absence of war. It was something that had to be actively defended by those willing to stand against the darkness. The fire that had devoured the Vorth fleets burned as a beacon of hope throughout the galaxy, a reminder that evil could be defeated by those brave enough to stand against it. And in the end, that was perhaps humanity's greatest gift to the stars, not their weapons or their technology, but their unwavering commitment to the idea that freedom was worth fighting for, no matter the odds.